Greetings, shining star. Dr. B here with a story of hope and success. And I'm happy to welcome back Marie Goslak, LPGA Teaching Pro, here to talk with us about a interesting phenomena that happens this time of the year. Right now, it's December 30th as I'm recording this, as we're ending the end of one year and beginning a new year. One of the things that people typically do when they're looking to encourage and progress down their journey of success is to set resolutions. But the truth of the matter is that resolutions don't always come to pass. The reason why I wanted to bring Marie Goslak back is that she has a very unique approach to how she looks at the new year and to make sure that she can set goals for herself to make changes that are actually permanent or long term. So, welcome, Marie. It's great to have you back here with a story of hope and success. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, I know for many years you have been doing what, from my perspective, looks like self strategic planning. Would you like to describe to people, instead of New Year's resolutions, what is it that you do?
That's a great question. Someone asked me the other day, do I have any resolutions? And I didn't mean to sound smug, but I said, I do not have resolutions. I have a strategic plan. And
Mm.
it came off a little smug, but let's be honest. Resolutions don't last. You see it in the gym. People show up, they join the gym, and by the end of January, they are nowhere to be seen. Okay. and and I always think that's sad. And so I had to really stop and look. And I was one of those people, not necessarily with the gym, but with other things. I would say, this is my year. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And 6 months into it, wonk, wonk, I'm back to where I was, or worse than where I was.
Mm.
And a number of years ago, I thought this is ridiculous. And I looked at successful people and successful companies, and they spent a lot of time planning, a lot of time strategically planning. And I thought, why can't I do that for myself? So I came up with a system and have refined it over the years, but it's basically a system that starts with, what do you want? And it starts
Mm.
with, what are you tired of? What are you embarrassed about? What embarrasses you? So an example, if someone came into my house many years ago, I'd probably be embarrassed, unannounced. They show up and I go, oh, I'm sorry. The
Oh,
place is a mess.
I
And
recognize that.
I was embarrassed because I'm a grown adult and it looks like a frat house. And I thought,
Mhm.
no more. I'm done with that. I am done with it. And so it starts with, what are you embarrassed about, or what do you want? What I
Mhm.
want is, if a neighbor comes to the door and says, can I come in? Oh, sure, come on in. Can I get you a glass of wine? And, there's snacks and there's drinks and it's clean. Wouldn't that be beautiful? We
Mhm.
start with what we want and then we go from there.
Oh, well, you've brought up some really, really great points that align with what successful people do, like you said. So, in the A to E theory of success, that D is for deliberate delivery, that intentionality. And it sounds like you're spending a lot of time in the C, the cognition of intentionally thinking about, where are you? What is it that you want? And that's an interesting question, though, to start with, like, what embarrasses you?
Mhm.
And that's where you may want to make some changes.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds good. So you go through this process. I'm assuming that while you're reflecting on what you really, really want, that you focus on variables that you actually can change, that you have control over, because wouldn't it be nice to be, I don't know, taller or thinner without exercise, right? Wealthier without work, but
Yes.
that's, you're not doing these hopeless kind of dreams, right?
Correct. I mean, you start with, what do you want? And then you go straight into, who are you? Who are you?
Mm.
I am a golf instructor. I'm I'm a manager at work. I have a team that I work with. I'm a sister. I'm a dog mama. And so you
Mhm.
start with, what do you want? And then, who are you? And then you break it into smaller pieces. But it really starts with, for me, an image. And so last year, the image was the phoenix. And if you know the phoenix, the story is, it rises from the ashes, and that that image kind of typified what I had been going through. I went through a really rough time. My world
Hmm.
was in rubble. It was
Hmm.
awful. And I had to figure out, how do you rise from the ashes? How do you come up out of this? So the Phoenix was the image. That's a picture that was literally on the front of my strategic plan. I came up with an image and then a slogan. And so my slogan this year is a simple one. It's just get it done. I am tired of talking about it. Just get it done. And so
Yeah.
I've got an image. And this year I've got a different image, but I've got an image and I've got a slogan. So that's what we start with. And then we
Okay.
go from there and find the pillars. The pillars are important because it allows you to kind of focus on your identity in your goal. And what I mean by that is, if I were the Phoenix and I was rising from the ashes, and if I was getting it done once and for all, what would it take? And for me, it would take consistency, persistence, and tenacity. So those are my pillars: consistency, persistence, and tenacity. And so everything I do runs through that. So I have a choice. I can sit on my butt and I can watch football all weekend. I could. Or
Hmm.
should I be consistent and say, you know what, just spend 5 minutes cleaning out that closet, just 5 minutes? That's
Mm.
consistent. And because then it goes to, I am a person that gets things done. My identity is now wrapped up in, I get it done. That's what I do this year. That's who I am. That's how I roll. And so you break it down from there. And so you've got your identity, you've got your image, you've got your pillars. And then I break it down even deeper. So if I were a consistent golf pro who got it done, what would my lessons look like? I'd have 1,000
Mm.
lessons a year. If I was a consistent golf pro who got it done, what would my clinics look like? Well, they'd be 75% full. And so now you have specific things. And then some are tied to my work. You know, if I was a consistent dog mom and I got it done, what would that look like? I'd walk my dogs at least 5 days a week.
Oh,
You
I was
know,
going to say they have greenies.
they have greenies. Yes, they have greenies. Well, honestly, that's one of the things. My thing is, on the first of every month, I go buy greenies whether I need them or not. You know why? Because I was embarrassed. I ran out of greenies. I did.
Oh,
And my dogs were really upset. And that's not a doggy mama that gets things done. That's an embarrassment. And so
yeah.
the new rule is, on the first, whether I need them or not, I'm buying some more greenies. And that way I am consistent and I get it done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that really, really does. And what I hear you talk about with your strategic plan is that you really are being deliberate in all of those facets of our lives,
Mhm.
right? It's not just, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to exercise, right? You're coming from a space of a attitude. Your that one of those attitudes is our self-image. What is it that the self-image that we want? I want to be a good doggy mama, right? And so now, how do we operationalize that? What does that look like? What does success look like? And you spend time in that thought process, and then it translates into behavior. Okay, a good doggy mama takes her dogs out for walks at least 5 days a week, and has greenies and buys them on the first day of the month, and it becomes much more manageable.
It's a pattern. It's something that you can do consistently. And that's really
Hmm.
what you're looking at. And you know, you mentioned different roles and facets of your life. I had a really interesting experience. I was an executive director of a nonprofit, and my goals that year were prosperity, um, and authenticity, and then something else I can't remember. And I had these goals. And throughout the year, what I do on certain days, I will grade myself and say, hey, I've got
Oh.
this plan. How am I doing? And you say, how do you grade yourself? It's easy. If, as an executive director, I had 10 goals and I only achieved 6 of them, well, that's 60%, and that's a D. Now, sometimes I can go through and say that this doesn't apply anymore. I'm going to delete it. But
Hmm.
throughout the year, my dates are the Masters because I'm a golf pro. That's usually around Easter, the 4th of July, October 11th, which is my birthday, and then the end of the year. So those are my 4 contact points to grade myself and check in and say, hey, how are you doing? You know, have you really been keeping up with this, or did you forget already? And
Hmm.
when I looked at myself, I got straight A's. I got 100% as the executive director. I got 100% in my finances. I was making all kinds of money. But when it came to integrity and self care, I got an F, not just an F, but a zero.
Mm.
I had
Yeah.
achieved 0% of my spiritual goals. I had achieved 0% of my physical goals. And I was unhappy as I have ever been. And you said,
Mm.
wait a minute, you had all the money that you needed, and you had a great title, and you had a job, and you were killing it. You had all these awards. What was missing? I didn't have that balance. And who I was not just an executive director. I was also a spiritual being and a physical being, and I was
Hmm.
lopsided, and wouldn't you know it, flipped over on me like the Titanic. So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's important to look at your entire life. If you're successful at work, but you're a terrible wife and your kids hate you, how's that? So,
Right.
so what does it look like to be a successful dog mom, or a real mom?
Right.
Dog moms are real moms. I want to go on record as saying that.
Well, it's you bring up so many points here. And one of the things that is fascinating about your approach is that you are modeling effective organizational behavior for yourself. And one of the things that we know that effective leaders do is they make use of data, uh, not overwhelming data, right? You're not checking in on yourself every single day. That's just too much. But you have these, pseudo quarterly kind of events where you sit down and you say, okay, how am I doing in each of these facets of my plan right now? And really making sure that it just comes together. You're looking at that data and saying, okay, am I hitting it? Am I not hitting it? And when you start to see these things that are out of balance, you have to ask yourself then, you know, is this working for me? So tell me a little bit more about then what happens when your journey is not coming to bear.
Well, I think sometimes it's because I didn't really want it. So, or I wasn't really
Mm,
invested. Or in my case, I'm a believer. God didn't want me to go down that road. Okay. So
okay.
if I wanted to be the world's greatest whatever, and I was meant to be a golf pro, I feel like I'm going to be redirected back. So sometimes for myself, it's a spiritual thing of God did not want you to do that. Let's go the other way.
Okay.
Sometimes I just am not that interested. And you have to kind of look and say, okay, do I really want to be a size six? Am I really willing to give up all that food and wine and cheese? No. So I have to reevaluate and say, it's not going to happen. And I'm okay with that. And what can I do? Maybe I could be a size eight. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or it's a happy 10. But, but I think that's really being honest with you and saying, do I want
Mm,
that? Because here's the truth. If I really wanted it, I'd make it happen to an extent, is if it was in my control.
uh,
Now,
right.
sometimes
If
it's
it's in,
outside of my control. And I think that's the other thing. Like I set a goal this year to teach a certain number of lessons. The weather was bad, the course closed, people got sick, there was all this drama, and I had to change my goal. And I remember I was talking to an executive, a high level Fortune 500 executive about it. And I said, how do you approach your year when on March 30th, it is clear that you're not going to achieve your goal for the entire year. It's over.
Mhm.
And he said, Amory, change the goal or change the calendar. He said, start with April 1st, make your year April to April and see how well you can do. We had a bad winter. You can't control that. Let's adjust and pivot or change
Mhm.
the goal. Maybe it's not the number of lessons that you teach. Maybe it's the customer satisfaction with your members. You can't control the weather, but you can control your customer service. So let's change that goal from a numeric X number of lessons to a customer service. How happy are your members? What can you do to
Mhm.
make them happy? And that was really helpful for me, for someone who was that big of a corporate executive and leader, to say, we're not giving up, we're just pivoting. And so
Uh-huh.
that was very powerful for me.
And really focusing on the things in your life that you have control over, right?
Definitely.
But I do want to take this moment to brag a little bit about you because there was a point when you were, when you're not teaching lessons, you're not making money and your mortgage doesn't change. And, um, these other things in your life that you have to pay for, the greenie prices don't go down. And so the weather was really messing with your life and your income. And so you made a real major pivot this year. What did you do?
Well, around March, it looked like I was about $15,000 behind what I wanted to be. And that's a lot of money for me. And
15,000 that early in the year is a
that
lot.
exactly, because you're looking at it and there's no way to catch up. Mathematically, there's not enough good days in the year to catch up in theory.
Hmm.
Probably by June, it looked like I was $30,000 behind.
Oof.
And that's a lot. And so what I did is I looked and I thought, what can I control? I may not be able to close the gap, but what can I control? And so I opened up my schedule to come in an hour early every day and stay an hour late. I opened up 23 days that I was supposed to be, taking off and doing other things, and I blocked those. I cut almost everything social that I was doing, all the
Hmm.
trips, a number of trips that I was supposed to take. I kept the essential ones, but I just made more space for work. And then I tried to market not just single lessons, but two-person lessons or three-person
Hmm.
lessons because you make more in that time frame. And that's what I did. And I'm proud to say I closed the gap. I can't believe it. I just looked at my finances and I made the same amount this year as last year, which is crazy, within $1,000. But I was so proud of the fact that I was able to pivot and close that gap. And that's important. And I think that's why you start looking at it in whatever dates you want to pick. Companies,
Right.
the quarters. I look at the Masters 4th of July and my birthday and the end of the year. But had
Hmm.
I not been monitoring that, I would not have been able to make adjustments. And one of my goals last year was to be positive in my approach and flexible in my positive in my attitude and flexible in my approach. And so
Mm.
I thought, okay, numbers aren't working this year. What are you going to do? And I looked back and I'm like, okay, I will be positive in my approach. Well, what can I do? And I'm going to be flexible. And
Mhm.
I was able to close that gap. So that was exciting.
Well,
And
that
that gives
sounds
confidence though, because now the next time something bad happens, I have confidence that I can do it because who am I? I'm the Phoenix.
the Phoenix. I love that. You have indeed risen from the ashes. Yeah, and you keep on doing it, which is pretty impressive. Well, before we close off, if there's one little message that you'd want to give to somebody who maybe hasn't thought about strategic planning in their own personal life, what might that be?
I think start small. When I sometimes guide people through this and I can guide people through this process, they get a little overwhelmed at first. And I'm like, you know what? Just start with what embarrasses you and what do you want? So that's who are you? And then who are you? Pick one role. Like I couldn't get better at everything, but maybe I could be a better sister, or maybe I could be a better golf pro. Just one or two things, and then you can expand from there. And it gets easier once you set that. So, I picked the thing that embarrassed me the most in life, which was my house and my money. As a grown adult,
Mhm.
I almost, lost my electricity because I forgot to pay the bill. Really, really, Amory. And so I picked two things, finances and house, and that's it. And then I built from there. And now I look at 17 different aspects of my life and I've got more control over my whole life. But start small and pick something inspiring.
Mm. Well, I think that that's a wonderful, wonderful way for us to end this particular year as we go into the next year. And so thank you, Anne Marie Goslak, for coming to us today to provide us with some hope on your journey of success through strategic planning. And to all the shining stars out there, may your journey be filled with hope. May you be on a path of success, and may your stars shine brightly for all those around to see. Have a great new year. Take care.
Happy New Year.